You want me to? Hello, everybody. This is Bob Kingpin Harris, along with my broadcast partner over there, Brian Cano Sr. And welcome to D-Backs Weekly Inside the Game. Brian and I are both credentialed media members of the Arizona Diamondbacks. And with that, Brian, you take it away.
Thanks, Bob. Not only are we credentialed media members, but I consider myself a little bit of a baseball aficionado. And maybe I'm not, but at the same time, I kind of get it. And I'll tell you what, Bob, I was really apprehensive of the series. And we'll dive into the series, the Cubs series first, because that was what we left last talking about. I was a little bit afraid that the D-backs were going to go to Chicago and come back, at least leave that series further behind than we thought in the wild card chase, but it turns out they did pretty well. They beat the Cubs 3 out of 4 games, and they lost this Sunday. The last game was on this past Sunday, but notably on we'll talk about the games, but for me anyway, the game of the week was Friday when the D-backs won 1-0 when Zac Gallen was phenomenal. He just went out there and just gutted it out, 9 innings.
And 9 innings, complete game.
Let him pitch, things like that. But yeah, let's talk about the series. What are your thoughts on the games?
Well, I'm just like you, Brian. I mean, I picked the Cubs to win 3 out of 4, and I am glad, to say that the Diamondbacks did it to the Cubs right there in Chicago, which, believe me, is a very tough place to play. If you're an opposing team, I mean, you got 35,000 people in that stadium, usually every day. They want their Cubbies to win. Listen, I'm originally from Chicago, right? I mean, I grew up a baseball fan, okay? I mean, I didn't really care if the Sox were playing, the Cubs were playing, but later in life, a little bit later in life, I shouldn't say that. When I was still living in Chicago, we actually had a Cubs player live with my family. So, I mean, I literally went to 81 home games that, for a few years. But listen, I have to say I'm a Cubs fan, I'm a baseball fan, I'm a Diamondbacks fan. And of course, I was very happy to see the Diamondbacks win, okay?
Yeah.
Because that's the team that we follow on a daily basis. And it was great to see. Very good pitching those first 3 games. Ryan Nelson, I mean, you already mentioned Zach, but Ryan Nelson kicked it off and he pitched very well.
Oh, phenomenal! And I want to even dive a little deeper into some of the other, the Lawler, the new shortstop. Tough losing Ahmed, but then Lawler comes up and his first game is in Chicago. Wrigley Field. And nobody knows where he's going to play. Steve Gilbert tweets out that he's been warming up at shortstop. Then he has a shortstop. I think out of all the games he played in the minors, I think 188 of the little over 210 games he did play in were either designated hitter or shortstop. I think he played 1 game at third base, but he held his own. Had some really good plate appearances, played solid defense, and for me anyway, it was nice to see that transformation take place from a minor league ball player to a major league player, and it happened relatively quickly for Jordan Lawler.
Right. And I think his hitting's going to come around. Okay, listen, he hasn't had that many at-bats right now, but his average is like 77.077.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come around because he's always hit. Okay. And the thing is, though, I think you're right. He played a good shortstop for a guy who, I'm telling you, my first game, I'd be shaking in my boots out there, right?
Right. Sure. Parents in the stands. Come on.
Yeah,
and then that's why I say plate appearances, Bob. I don't think it's fair to judge his series against Chicago and hold that against him. It's a lot of variables that I did consider. So I really focused it on his plate awareness. What's he doing? How's he? And does he swing at good pitches? Is he laying off bad pitches? Sure, as a rookie, he didn't get some calls. I mean, let's face it, he's wearing number 10. And finally, he's got a small number, and maybe they'll start giving him some respect. But at the same time, when you're coming out of the minor leagues, no one knows you. You're going to not get those calls right away. And he laid off of them to his demise. But at the same time, I think that those type of plate appearances bode well for that type of player as the D-backs get further into the NL wildcard playoff race. But anyway, that's game 2. Zac Gallen. Gallen right now is 15-7 with a 3.31 ERA with 195 strikeouts. The guy is like Cy Young Award candidate for sure.
I was going to say it put him right back in that Cy Young category. After the last two prior starts, he wasn't the Zac Gallen that we know.
Right.
This time he was lights out. I mean, when you can shut out the Chicago Cubs, I mean, and they've got a pretty solid lineup there. You know, that you're talking about a great job, and 9 innings. I mean, a complete game. That's unheard of these days.
Yeah, no, that's an old school. I think we spoke after the game. It reminded me of Morris back in the day with the Tigers. Yep. Greg Maddux is another pitcher that it came to mind. Just that the command and the poise and the gutty, just that gutty reaction to some of the adversities that he did face in the game. And I was really pleased for not only Gallen but also for his manager Torey Lovullo over there. He was pacing like he was an expectant father in the delivery room, and I don't blame him. It was tough, but at the same time, it was good to see. And then, of course,
and you know what? I'm also glad about you mentioned Torey Lovullo. I'm glad that Torey Lovullo did what we say. He felt it. He didn't go by the numbers. He felt it, and he said, "I'm putting Zac Gallen back out there in the 9th." And that's the biggest thing that I liked about that game. Was that Torey was not going to go by what he would usually do, right? And that's play by the card or whatever you call it, the percentages per se. And it was great to see him just leave him in there, go with him. I feel like he's pitching well. Nobody's going to hit him, and he was right.
Bob, I just think that there's a definite distinction between analytics and feel. We've talked about that based on our observations. We're field reporters, but there's a definite contrast there, and I think that contrast was illustrated in Lovullo's decision making that day, where you can say, "Well, this is a better opportunity for this pitcher to get this out, even though this pitcher has gone 8 innings." I think when he factored in who's the actual pitcher in the game, it's Gallen. What's he doing right now? How's he feeling? What's he talking to? And I think when you factor some of those intangibles in, it made his decision a little easier. And not only that, but it's not an easy decision, but it took the stats out of the mix and made it very clear. I mean, to me anyway, that he was using his heart, which is not always a bad thing in baseball. Go with your feel, and I think in this case it worked out in his favor. But anyway, the D-backs they came back strong. They won. Let's see, was it? I think they won on Saturday. What was the score of that game, Bob? 3-2. It was 3-2. 3-2 victory. Nonchalant. They didn't score too many. I mean, 3 runs. Let's face it. That's not enough to. So I was a little concerned for them going into the Sunday matchup. Frankly, and I think that at the end of the day, and I won't say that they were tired. Because both teams were playing, and the Cubs are probably just as tired, but they lost 5-2 on Sunday.
But I was surprised that game because they originally had Pham penciled in from what I saw, and then they wound up going with a bullpen game. Now, granted, they brought Pham in, as you mentioned to me the other day, and he gave up 3 home runs in a row. Now, that's the second time that this has happened this year. He did that against Cincinnati, 3 home runs in a row. Now, maybe it was a good thing to go with a bullpen game, but maybe Pham should have stayed the heck out of there. But he's just not ready yet. This is like the 3rd or 4th time they've brought this kid up this year, and he is really. He had a decent game, I think, the game before this, but he is just not consistent.
Yeah, no, actually those home runs were separated by 1 batter. I think it was Ballinger, and they hit 3 home runs in the same inning, nonetheless. Right. And then you get a 4-run separation on the Cubs late in the game, and again, it is what it is. But some of his pitches anyway were a little up in the zone. they don't move enough to fool anybody at that level, and especially for someone that maybe even expecting that, because when you get the blueprint on fat, and wait for the fastball, wait for the mistake, you may get one and sit on it just because you might get it. And some of these batters are getting these middle in pitches just above the belt. I mean, that aren't moving. It's to me like, wow, hard to not hit the ball 375 feet over the fence. But God bless him, because there are moments where he does get a lot of people out in a row, 16, 11. And I think that, going into the playoffs, he's going to be, if the D-backs are fortunate enough to make it into the playoffs, he'll pitch. He'll pitch and it'll be relief, or he'll start, but he'll probably get an opportunity to pitch, and hope with any luck, they'll work on that off speed in the dirt pitch. That's all I can say.
I don't believe that he'll start unless they go to a 4 out of 7 game series. I think out of your 3 and what is it? What's the first one? Is it?
I think it's a best of
3
3
out of 5?
series. Yeah, no, it's a best of 3. I'm thinking.
So it's just 2 out of 3 that you got to win. Okay, then that's simple. That's Gallen, Kelly, and Davies. My thought right now.
Yeah,
Possibly Ryan Nelson, but I think that's what it would be. I think it would be just Gallen, Davies, and I'm sorry, Gallen, Kelly, and Davies.
No. Right now the D-backs have a 1-2 punch in Gallen and Kelly, but reminds me not quite of the 2001 D-back team with Johnson and Schilling.
Right.
But I'll tell you what, it's pretty darn good right now, and the D-backs have that in their back pocket. But the third starter, Davies, he has his moments where he's, as long as he doesn't throw the ball over the plate that isn't moving too much, like Fat, for example, has been doing. I think he stands a chance of going those 5, maybe 6 innings and giving the ball over to the relief staff with maybe a 2-run cushion. Who knows? Maybe a 1-run lead, but he's never gonna. He's not gonna overwhelm anybody like Gallen did the other day for sure.
Yep.
But we'll see. But right now the D-backs are in third wild card. I mean, they're looks like they're 1.5 games ahead of the Marlins.
1.5 games. Yep. As we
1.5
go
games
tonight's
against the Giants. Yep. And right now they're 2 games behind the Cubbies. So this is a big deal. The Mets
this is again. Well, I was going to say this week is huge. No, the rest of the games are huge. Yeah. All of these games are really big. They got 3 more in New York. They come home for Chicago 3 games. They got an ESPN game Sunday late afternoon our time, evening for the East Coast, but an ESPN game. That's the first time I believe they've been on ESPN Sunday night this year.
Yeah, I know it is. I just published an article, Bob, on my digital platform because I thought that was a big deal, that folks should know that the game time, not only has the game time moved to Sunday, the time has changed. It's not going to start at 4:10. I think it was scheduled for like noon or 12:45 or somewhere in there.
Yeah, it would have been a 1:10 if a regular Sunday game would have been a 1:10.
Yeah.
During the week, if they play, then it's a 12:40 start. But
it's also going to be on ESPN and not going to be on MLB TV.
Right, exactly.
So,
exactly.
I'll make sure on my digital platform, Petsonimo.com, that I continue to put out information in that regard. If fans want to know where to find the D-backs, you can find it here, or maybe Bob will put something up on his platform, Pro Sports Broadcasting.com. Bob, am I right about that? All right.
Yep.
All right. But anyway, no, let's last night we'll talk a little bit about the Mets and the D-backs, because Tommy Pham, one of my favorite players, been so since we picked up the very last player in the I don't want to say like the run of the litter kind of stuff, because he's not. Right. Tommy Pham is a hell of a ball player. He's a leader and he does a lot of things well. He does have he does slam bats into batting. Wherever you put your bat, he hurts his pinky every now and then. But man, he had a big home run last night in the 8th inning, and
well, he was 3 for 5, wasn't he?
35 years old, compared to some of these other guys. The guy just lights out, phenomenal. And he led the team to a big win, because if they didn't win that game, who knows what happens today?
Yeah,
where
I mean, right. That since what's really good right now is if the Diamondbacks and let me finish up with Pham, as you just mentioned. He has been a bright spot since he's come over. He's got really timely hits in a number of games already. And you know that he wants to stick it to the Mets, where he just got traded from at the trade deadline. You could tell on his home run. I mean, he's even clapping himself. It's like he wants to get back at these guys, but he also wants to get into the playoffs. And I think he knows. Listen, I'm supposed to be one of the leaders on this team.
Yeah,
I mean, he at least, I believe, is a vocal leader,
yeah,
where and Evan Longoria is not.
yeah.
He's a great guy, but he's not going to come up to you and say and kick your ass. Where I think that Pham will actually come up to you and say, "Man, you dogged that play," or something like that. I think he would say that.
Yeah, he's come from a different cloth, in my opinion. I mean, I've done some research on Tommy Pham and his background and whatnot, and not everybody has the easiest of lives. And I'll just tell you this much: that he works real hard at being the best baseball player he can be, and he continues to do that. And I think his presence is very reflective of some of the players that are starting to play a little bit harder now, maybe even in the outfield. Guys, maybe helping out by illustrating how it should look, is showing some of the younger outfielders, and I won't name any of them, how to play, how to be a professional, how to get through adversity. And again, he has his tendencies where he does things that even I, as an adult, will do. The little boy in me screams out, "It's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's me. It's me." So I'll slam something on the ground. I mean, I didn't mean to. Before you know, I've got something wrong with my leg. I slammed something. That's my fault. But
Do you think it's any coincidence that Alec Thomas has really gotten going since Tommy Pham has come to the Diamondbacks? I mean, think about that. I mean, here's a guy who was really struggling. Now he's getting timely hits, and well, of course, he's always played a great outfield. That we know.
yes,
But it seems like he's woken up,
yeah.
and I wonder if Tommy Pham has actually taken some of these young guys underneath him, and has taught them, how to settle down a little bit, because Alec Thomas is a different player right now than he was before Tommy came to the team.
Playing with a
I,
lot of
I,
maturity,
I don't
a
know
lot
what
of
you think
maturity.
about that.
I think that you're spot on, Bob. I think that I won't name any players specifically, but I will say that I've noticed a difference in some of the attitudes and some of the adversities and how they handle those adversities subsequent. And again, in baseball, it's a failure sport. You're going to fail a hell of a lot more than you're going to succeed.
That's right.
Put it
That's right.
behind
I
you,
mean,
move forward.
a 300 average is considered good, but if you look at it this way, 7 times out of 10, you're failing.
Yeah, no, it's a tough sport, but you got to maintain professionalism. I think that Tommy Pham has been in an illustration of that, and not only that, but his words of wisdom, his little nuggets that he's probably chunking off to these guys and talking about some of the things that are important that maybe. And I'm not going to say that Longoria doesn't do that, but at the same time, Tommy Pham is in some instances, on some polls, Tommy Pham is one of the top 10 outfielders in all baseball right now. They say in left field, he's one of the best left fielders, one of the top 10 in all of baseball. And that includes Corbin Carroll on that list. So with that being said, his hitting has been a treat, but more than anything, since day one, I noted, I think it comes from where he came from, which is in New York. Bucky, when Buck Showalter has things going his way, he runs a tight ship and he expects a lot. And probably even when they get up to have cereal in the morning, they probably have to pour it a certain way, in New York. Who knows? But
Yeah.
they used to do things right over there. And let's hope, that at least for the next 2 or 3 games, that the D-backs can overcome what's their lack of offense and maybe get a few more runs and then like literally sweep this series. Who knows? Tonight they got let's see, they got Ryan Nelson 7-7.
Yep.
He's got 5.30 ERA. He's got 85 Ks, which is pretty good. I know it's not Gallen, but it's reasonable. Going up against Jose Buto, I believe, and he's 0-2 with a 3.86 ERA with only 16 strikeouts. So this is an opportunity for the offense to come alive. Give Nelson a few runs, give him a cushion, see what happens when he's pitching with a lead, and that's my hope. He got the lineup's been announced. Carroll's going to lead off. Marte's hitting second. Pham's hitting third. Walker's hitting fourth. Thomas is hitting fifth. Gurriel Jr. is sixth. Peterson is playing third base, and he's hitting seventh. Jose Herrera is back in because obviously Gabby's I don't know where he's at now, but he's on paternity leave with his more than likely his better half or his wife there had a child. So wish him well. Hope that's all turned out okay. I don't know for sure, but and then we got Perdomo hitting in the 9 hole. So those are the 9 D-backs that are playing along with Nelson pitching. So I'm hoping the D-backs can step it up tonight and give the kid a little cushion.
Yeah. Hopefully they can go ahead and do that, and hopefully the weather. I mean, it's been raining on and off per se in New York. I don't know what it's doing out there today, but hopefully it's much better than it has been.
Looked pretty miserable yesterday, dreary. But at the same time, I didn't hear of any complaints on cramps, and nobody was complaining about the heat, and that's nice to. I'm just being Chase Field,
you talk about that. I wonder, and I'm just thinking, that when they usually announce the temperature inside Chase Field, it's always like 78 or 79 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering next time, we got to listen for this. Next time that Kelly pitches at Chase Field, I want to see if they've lowered the temperature. I want to see if it's like going to be like 75 in there.
Oh man.
That was just something that came to mind.
It's food for thought, man. That's why I mentioned it, because that's another issue altogether. We'll have to talk about down the road, the fact that the D-backs may or may not be seeking an alternative place to play their games down the road. Is Chase Field really a viable location? Is it just the location downtown Phoenix that keeps the D-backs there? And with that, there are so many things to talk about. Public initiatives, private funding, public funding, votes, and blah 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 blah. But that's
I don't think they're not going to be able to get public funding, but we'll talk about that at some other point. I just don't see that happening. I mean, we've got too many other issues like any other major city across this country.
You know what, Bob? Amen to that, brother. Thanks for bringing that, pointing that out, because that is 100% spot on. We got homelessness here in the Valley, which I don't want to get into. This is a baseball show, but as a journalist, I see things every day that I have to sleep at night, and I sleep sometimes with some of those things on my mind. And with that being said, I'm grateful to be here with you today, Bob, with the D-backs Weekly Inside the Game. We're coming toward the ending of the show here, just to let everybody know that the Mets are we're playing the Mets. Obviously, the D-backs, not we, but tonight, the 13th and the 14th. I think the Thursday game is a morning game, Bob, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's a getaway day, so yeah, it'll be
10:40. And then we come back on the 15th, 16th, 17th.
It could be a 9:40 game here in the Valley. I don't know what it is. I don't have my my phone up to actually give the actual time, but it will be a very early game here, since there's a 3-hour time difference.
Yeah, it's going to be. It looks like the Mets have it scheduled for 1:10, so it's going to be 10, a little after 10 a.m. here.
Yeah, it'll be 10, right? If it's 1 o'clock there, it's 10:10 here.
Yeah,
the game will be over by 12:30 our time.
By lunchtime.
Yeah.
And then run to the D-backs.
They'll hop on a plane and then come on back and get ready the very next day. There's no off days right now, and they're playing the Cubs at home on Friday night. I believe it's is it Hispanic Heritage Night?
Hispanic Heritage Weekend, the whole weekend.
Weekend,
okay. Weekend, yeah. But
and there's a giveaway, a giveaway Friday night. So what I want to see is more Diamondbacks fans out there rooting these guys on, because one thing we know, there will be a lot of Chicago Cub fans there, because we have a ton here in the Valley.
Yeah, no, it's also Roberto Clemente Day. They'll make some announcements that day. No, with that being said, Bob, I'm glad you brought it up. The D-backs numbers have been, let's face it, it's been tough for the D-backs as it relates to getting people to come to the games. I'm not sure why. The team is in a wild card chase right now. They're a game and a half ahead of some pretty good teams. I say get out there and watch them if you can. If you can. Yeah. If you can't, watch them on TV. If you can't watch them on TV, listen to them on the radio. but get a taste of it, because this is a young team, and they've worked real hard, and they're hurting right now physically. Some of their bodies, I'm sure, toward the end of the year, and the support that the Valley can give them as it relates to just being enthusiastic, I
Yep.
think that will put them over the top and get them into the playoffs. So we still got some
Right.
series coming up against the Yankees and the Sox, but we'll end against the Astros. But this next one here in Phoenix against the Cubs, starting on the 15th, 16th, and 17th, if we can get 35,000 people in the stands on each of those games, that'll be phenomenal.
Absolutely. That would be great. And you mentioned Roberto Clemente, something about him. What's kind of interesting about that, and I wonder if he would even come back for this, but the guy who's been named for the Diamondbacks as for the Roberto Clemente Award, he's been thrown into this pool, is Nick Ahmed,
Nick
who of
Ahmed.
course is has been DFA'd, and I wonder if he would even come back and come back in front of the crowd.
It'd be tough, man. No one knew all this stuff was going to happen in retrospect, but at the same time, he has been nominated as the D-backs representative, a chance of winning the Roberto Clemente Award. So
Yep.
We'll see what happens in that regard. But until then, I'm looking forward to the series, and we'll connect again next week and talk some more baseball. Talk about the Giants middle of the week series, and then the Yankees
Right.
over the weekend. So should be fun.
Absolutely. It'll be a blast. Well, I think that's it for today, Brian. So I'll wrap it up here. Everybody, thanks so much for joining myself and Brian. You've been watching D-backs Weekly Inside the Game. See you next time.